Now we're officially starting. So welcome everyone to High Speed Healing Wednesdays. We have a lot of new people here tonight and just beyond excited to have you here. For those of you who don't know me, I'm Debora Wayne. I'm the founder and CEO of the International Chronic Pain Institute. We have lots of old timers here, lots of new timers. You're all welcome in my universe. And it's just a thrill to have you here tonight. We have a very, very special guest that I'm just super excited to share him and his work with you. Many of you know, you hear me talking about sound all the time. Those of you that have worked with my high speed healing method, the energy healing method, whether virtually or at a live event, you know that I've talked many, many times about how everything is sound. And I use a lot of musical metaphors. And even my story, for those of you who have been around a while, you know I was a dancer, like music's been a big part of my life. So tonight I have a colleague of mine, David Gibson, who is just like the guy when it comes to sound healing. He is, well, he studied physics, first of all, go figure that, right? At Berkeley. He is the founder and the director of the Globe Sound and Consciousness Institute in San Francisco. And he is a music creator, producer, an artist, an author, a sound healer. He has so many institutes, I have to look at the list, okay, because he does so much. I'll read you a few of just the top things, and then we'll talk to him, and I'm going to ask him to tell us more about his story and his background. But he's the author of the book, The Complete Guide to Sound Healing. And why I'm really wanted to bring him here tonight the most is because his expertise is creating frequencies and embedding them in his musical CDs. He's created over 60, I believe, CDs, and they're for purposes of healing. All right, see why I love him? And he's really dialed into the fact that sound has a profound healing impact on the body, the mind, and the spirit. And so David, he's also produced a bunch of technologies I want to pick his brain about that are really fascinating. And his goal is bringing sound to the mainstream to really help. His music, his CDs are played in hospitals and institutions. And he's just really the guy who has studied this and knows what he's talking about. So I wanted to bring him here tonight. And we have a very special gift for you that he's generously given us. So everybody wants to stay till the end and get that gift and learn how you can heal with the sound of music. So David, such a pleasure to have you. Welcome to High Speed Healing Wednesdays. I got a list of questions.
What a pleasure to be here. Pleasure. Nice to meet you all. Thank you for joining us or having me on.
Such a thrill. David, I've been fascinated by sound healing like forever. I remember in the third grade, it was the first time my elementary school took us all to the symphony. The symphony, and we sat like towards the front of the stage. And I didn't know what to expect. But when the curtain opened and the symphony started, the sound for me was so profound, I literally started crying. Everybody are looking at me like, what the hell's wrong with her? But I could feel the music in my body so profoundly. And from that day on, I knew music was going to be an important part of my life. Tell us, what in the world is going on with sound? Why is it such a practical, experiential thing? What's that about?
Well, you can start with the fact that vibration is the basis of everything. There's nothing more right. There's nothing more primordial than vibration. And so and there's many levels going on. You've got the frequencies, you've got the sounds themselves, then you've got the relationship between the frequencies and which are the musical intervals, but then you have the flow in the music, which is, rhythm that will entrain your brain and your heart, and also melodies along with rhythm that will create just about every emotion you would like, right? And then when you add energy to that, oh my God, it's like off the charts, right? So there's many different levels you can really look at it. And they all work together really to create that experience. You know, it's interesting. I remember when I saw the symphony the last time I saw it, it's really, it is. It's just like unbelievable.
Right? Unbelievable.
Yeah, and it's because, one part is because uh, uh, it's like multi-brain experience,
Yeah.
right? You're tuning into multiple things at once. And when you tune into multiple things at once, your brain goes into theta, which is just a little step from being one with the universe,
Oh,
right?
wait, say that again because I talk about the theta in my own work a lot because my energy healing method, high speed healing, puts people in theta very rapidly.
Uh-huh.
And a lot of people would probably want to know, what do you mean by theta?
Well,
Tell.
theta is between 4 and 8 cycles per second, and it's when the brain is vibrating at that rhythm. And everybody's theta rhythm is a little bit different, right? So you're going to go into your own natural rhythm. And it's where you go when you're in the zone. It's where you go when you're one with the universe. It's or transmitting love, and it's beautiful. But what's cool about it is when you tune in to more than one thing at a time, you go into this theta state. We're not talking multitasking, we're talking simultaneously, right? And that happens with nature, with views, with sparkles on the water. I mean, nature has it down to bring us into theta, right? But it also happens with music. And then, of course, with the symphony, like, 100-piece orchestra, like, oh my God, right? But it also happens with sound and sound healing, where you have multiple harmonics on one crystal bowl, or even multiple harmonics in the voice. And it takes you out of that prefrontal cortex worry,
Mm.
where it's one focus, right? And now your whole brain starts working like Joe Dispenza talks about,
So
right?
listen, again, I want to really just articulate a few of these points because you're so advanced that you may be using terms that not everyone knows.
Yeah, I
But
started a little advanced here.
hey, hey, go on, go for it here. It's the you know, when people go into theta, they're actually stimulating the right side of the brain and that relaxation response. But that frontal cortex, so that's correct me if I'm wrong, but that's the fight or flight, right? That everybody's in most of the
Uh-huh.
time. It's
Right, right, exactly.
all uptight and worried. And so nobody wants to be there, but they don't know how to get out of it and try to think themselves out of it. And you can't do that.
Right.
So music just sort of puts you there.
Yeah, yeah. And it's interesting, what I've realized about music, because I wrote the number one selling books in audio recording also, right? The main thing about music for healing is smooth flow, because it matches and creates smooth flow within the body. And that's where the health is. No blockages, right? And so if you don't have smooth flow in your nervous system, you're going to
Mm.
be shaky. If you
In-
don't have smooth flow in your circulatory system, you could have a heart attack. If you don't have smooth flow in your digestive system, all types of problems. And of course, smooth flow in meridians is the whole deal, right? So you poke the frequencies, which are the acupuncture points, so they'll receive and transmit the flow. So it's really all about flow, and nature
Mhm.
has it down, right?
Very interesting. When I work on people, particularly remotely, they often say to me, I felt like you were smoothing out my field, my body, and that you were, they'll all often also say things like, I either felt like I was flowing like water, or I felt water, or I felt the flow. They use those terminologies. Amy's going, woohoo, I love him. Well, see, Amy, this is why I brought him. I knew all of you guys are going to love him. He speaks our language and he has a different, way of transmitting it, which is so cool. So, David, you said the word entrainment, which is something that, again, with energy healing, with any kind of remote healing, it's just like music. You turn it on, you hear it perhaps, and you start to entrain with it. Tell our audience, what does that mean?
Well, there's a basic law of physics that I learned at UC Berkeley, and that is a strong resonant vibration will overcome a weaker vibration and entrain the weaker into the stronger. And it's really the way the whole universe works at every single level of reality. If there's ever change in the universe or in your body or in anything, it's because of that law, right? So the most basic level is really to look at it as vibration and frequency as opposed to music, right? And there, what we're looking at is the difference between a chaotic vibration, right, which would be like fear, ah, or anxiety, eh, right, or anger, or stress, ah, or pain, yeah, right? Versus a stable, consistent vibration, which is like the vowels, which are like this.
Can totally feel that the
Right.
difference, right? Everybody, can you type in the chat? You can feel the difference, right? It's
Oh,
incredible.
peace. This is the main thing I've learned is peace is a frequency humming consistently, right? And when the body is healthy, every single cell, every single organ, every single part of the body is humming consistently, precisely at its own natural vibration for that part of the body, right? So you can start just by overcoming the chaos with just a vowel or a crystal bowl or Tibetan bowl or tuning forks, right? Or what you just said when you did the treatment, you smoothed over the chaos. They said that you were smoothing over. So you can totally just do the stable vibrations, but when you get really specific, oh my God, here's something I just had a kidney stone.
Oh, not fun.
Right. Oh, it was not fun at all. But it's like, okay, I just did the Medical Sound Association meeting, right, with a lot of doctors. We just launched it a couple of weeks ago. And Spirit says, okay, you got to do a little recognizance and go into the hospital and, and see what's going on. Oh my God. It's just crazy that we don't have a frequency that matches the frequency of the nerves that are creating the pain. This is not rocket science. If you scream,
Yeah.
you fill up the nerve endings, so there's no way pain can come in. So if you just scream, there's no pain. It's great when they pull off the tape off the IV. It's just, right? And you feel nothing, right? Or I learned you can just tone. That will do it as well. But if we had a frequency of the nerves, which is not rocket science to find, we could play that to the nerves and they would have no pain. And I'm thinking, this is great. I mean, we should also have a frequency that would be at you could place at the kidney
Yeah.
and down at the bladder, and the two frequencies would go whoosh, whoosh, right? It would be like a song flowing, and just push it on out.
Yeah.
So I got a lot of ideas, right?
I'm sure it's possible. Actually, I've worked. So when I work on people, I'm bringing in these galactic frequencies. And I had a woman once who literally, this is years ago when I had an office where I saw people in person. She came in and laid on the table. And when we got done and I was asking her questions about what she experienced, she said, I got an entirely new kidney. And I was intuitively, it's going to be 12 weeks to integrate this kidney. But you just completely changed my kidney.
Yeah. You know, there's the higher level of flow
Mhm.
is, I mean, gratitude's not too bad. Compassion's cool. Love's really great. The frequency of your soul
Yeah.
is really powerful because it's so stable and consistent. But the best of all is what you're talking about, and that's source. I mean,
Source. You found source. Yeah.
source is stable and so consistently flowing, it feels like a state of being. But also, source is intelligent, right?
Exactly. And so that's why I don't have to figure out what frequencies. I just have to get out of the way to bring them in. And source divine intelligence knows the frequency that people need. But that's exactly what you're saying. It is
You know what frequency source is?
what?
All of them.
Oh, okay.
It's all of them. When you're in source, right? If you play a crystal bowl or do a certain note, it kind of brings you down,
That,
right?
that,
It's really like, "Wah!" It's like the whole angelic choir of the universe. It's all frequencies.
okay. So I actually had a really wild spiritual experience years ago before all this started to happen with my work, where I literally heard what I would call the symphony of the spheres.
Mhm.
Name it.
Uh-huh.
I heard the
Yes.
sounds of everything and all that is. And
Yes.
whoa, Nelly, it was like the most incredible, ecstatic music, this symphony. And I could tell how everything has its own unique sound, but it's all playing together. And it
Right.
just,
Harmonious.
you just connected the dots for me. So when I work, I'm actually tapping into all that is,
Yeah.
all the sound that is, all the frequency that is. I never really quite connected that dot till just now.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, that's the ultimate when we're talking about tuning into multiple things at once, like a symphony. Well, goodness, like all the frequencies in the universe, that'll seriously bring you into theta. And you can go and there's a few ways you can do it. You can, by tuning into multiple things, it gets you most of the way there. And it's just a little step before you're one with the universe. But you can also go the other way where you actually play frequencies of theta, which is binaural beat rhythms in headphones that actually are tuned to you, and that will get you into that state of the zone.
Okay, that's one of my questions for you. There's a lot of talk about binaural beats.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know what they are well enough to explain them, and I'd like you to talk about that because I know my audience is online all the time, and
Mm-hmm.
you see this all the time, like binaural beats. Some people are actually afraid of this. Like, does it have power over people? Can it affect their brain or their body? Like, obviously, it has an impact. So,
It
would you?
can be, it can, you got to be careful with them sometimes for sensitive people.
That's what I'd like you to talk about further, if
Right.
you would.
Okay. Well, if I do a rhythm, ba, 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 everybody's brain will normally synchronize to that, normally within even 15 seconds. We are designed to synchronize to the rhythms around us. So so the different rhythms that we synchronize are to our natural brain rhythms. So we've got so if you are between zero point 0.5 and 4 cycles per second, which is like slow, bum 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 bum, that's the rhythm of our brain when we're asleep, right? And you can see this when you put on EEG. It's exactly what it shows, right? And then if when you're in the zone, when you're in the dream state, when you're getting creative downloads, that's theta, which is a little bit faster, 4 to 8 cycles, ba 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 ba. And then alpha is even faster than that, 8 to 12, and that's when you're present, or it's really good for learning, and it's also really good for sports as well. And it's where you get creative problem solving, where it's like, oh, I just got the answer, right? And then there's beta, which is depending on which chart you look at, it's like 12 to 20 cycles per second. And that's when you're thinking, which is really important if you have ADD, because the main type of ADD is you can't go fast enough to get into beta, so they give you speed, right? But we can entrain you into that beta, and so you can totally think again. And then above 20 or 30, depending on the charts, is gamma, where you're just like totally blissed out, right? But here's the deal: everybody's brainwave are a little bit different within delta. They're a little bit, yours is like here, mine will be here within theta, within alpha, beta, and gamma, right? And when you find that actual rhythm, natural rhythm of your brain in each of the brainwave states, it's way more effective. So if you listen to YouTube, and there's thousands of binaural beats on YouTube, there's 1 in 12 chance that you'll get it tuned to you. And if it's not tuned to you, for some people that are really sensitive, it can be really, really bad. I was doing the binaural beat class last year, and there was a woman in class, and she's really fragile. And I'm playing these binaural beats that are going whoa, 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 whoa through my big speakers, right? Whoa, whoa, whoa. And she starts bawling.
Right.
Right? I'm like, and she says, I can't be in here. This is making me crazy. And so I had the whole class tune into her and listen for her note, for her rhythm, for her natural metabolism. We'd practiced a little bit already. 70% of the class came up with the note of A, right? So I tuned the binaural beats to A for her, and she goes, cool, and was fine the rest of the class, right? So this is major. I
Yeah.
mean, this can help people sleep big
Yeah.
time. It can help with creativity, with presence, especially ADD. And if you want to get blissed out in gamma, oh my God, right? So this is one thing we do here is we actually do an assessment where we play each of the 12 notes to see which note makes you the most peaceful,
Mhm.
so that we can then give you CDs and delta, theta, alpha, and beta tuned to you.
So awesome. Oh my God. David, how did you get into all this? Like, how did your life go this direction?
Well, I played clarinet in high school, and then I played bass clarinet. Then I got into audio recording, and I learned all about audio recording, and then worked with a lot of major groups, and then started teaching audio recording, and had a major school with like 200 students teaching audio recording. Wrote the main book in the field, and I started seeing this magic coming across from different musicians where I'd get chills, sometimes the room would turn purple. Right? And I was like, what's going on? How can we reproduce this at will? And
Mhm.
so I started checking out the field, and there was all these sound healers in the San Francisco area. So I added sound healing into the recording program, and then created our own sound healing program about 18 years ago. So that was one thing. But another thing was, when I was teaching recording, somebody said, Dave, which way do you turn the knobs to make it sound good? We know what the equipment does, but which way do you turn the knob? And I thought I should be able to explain this. So I came up with a way of visualizing sounds using bubbles or spheres. So volume is front to back for each sound. Panning is left and right, left to right, frequencies up and down. And I have a different sphere for each sound. And I wrote a book that shows all the different styles of mixes in the world visually for audio recording. And it's been the #1 selling book in recording. It's in every school that teaches recording. But then I thought, let's put these sounds inside the body in virtual reality,
Yeah.
right? So you put on a VR helmet, you can see your nervous system or your skeletal system, and then you can take a geometry that has its own healing capacity, put it in your heart, and move it up and down on the sound table, so you feel it vibrating right where you're seeing it visually. And I thought, if I was going to do this, I should study sound healing so I don't explode any organs or hurt people.
Good
And
idea.
so that got me into it as well.
Great idea. I also was thinking today to ask you, what is the difference between, or maybe there is no difference, but what's the distinction between sound that comes from our voice, from a musical instrument, from a recorded device, from a digital device? Like, what's the difference there? Is there, because people ask me all the time, I record my healing sessions, which a lot of it is done in silence, but the frequencies get embedded in the recording. People say, well, how can that be? And how can that work? And how can that be as powerful as in person or talking to you over the phone? But it is. And I'd love for you to give us a little deeper explanation of different devices or the different instruments in voice. Can
Yeah,
you elaborate on
it's yeah. Um, in my book, I go through all these different parameters that make up music, right? And how to refine them, make them better for recording, right? But the most important parameter is your intention and your energy that you're doing, exactly what you're talking about. And we've learned that that does get carried through the recording, regardless of the quality. Even if it's bad quality, that intention. It's like I remember when I was in, listening to going to see the Grateful Dead, and they had like these little horrible recordings of cassette of
Right.
them. And, still we got really high. It didn't really matter because that energy was there. So it definitely gets carried through to the listener. That what's important when you're working in with sound and music and recording it is to hold that intention with 100% focus, because the more stable it is, the more it gets carried through. So I'm really careful about holding an intention really consistently. When I did my CD, Unconditional Love, that everybody's going to get, I mean, I was like, just really detailed about being in that energy the whole time. So now there's certain aspects when you get technical about it. Whenever you record something, the microphone screws it up a tiny bit, the recording screws it up a tiny bit, the speakers, when you play it back, screws it up a tiny bit, right? So it's never as good as live. And when you're live, you've got a sound that's more 3D, and it's wrapping around your head, and you don't get that. So it's always better to be live. But God comes in any of those ways. I mean, if you're seeing, I mean, you can see God from a cassette, you know. I mean, you can see God from like a really bad recording on Skype, right? I mean, so that's really the critical part. Now you can get into the quality between, I mean, if you look at the sampling rate versus, especially between wave,
Yeah.
which is like normal CD, and that high quality versus the MP3, you really don't want to put an MP3 physically on your body, because we've got CDs that you don't listen to. You play the CDs on your body with headphones. And we even have devices that you can actually put on your, besides the headphones, that are way stronger. And if you're going to do that, you really want the highest quality vibration physically on the body, as opposed to the MP3. So we make sure that we send out all the wave version for the computer, because the wave won't go on the phone. Um, so that's another important. But as far as music, the energy of the music and the intention behind it, it's going to come across, and that's really the biggest, most important part. Because I mean, people even talk about tuning to 432 versus 440. It's like if there's not light in the music,
Yeah.
it doesn't matter what it's tuned to. It's the light that's the whole deal, right? And then if you tie into higher beings and open up portals to higher levels of consciousness, people are like, holy moly, what is going on? I've got a new kidney.
Exactly. Exactly. Oh, yeah, I have stories to tell. So many things I want to talk about. The Medical Sound Association. Tell us a little about that.
Okay, so I was in Mount Shasta last year, and I got a download to create the association to bring sound into the medical side. Sound is in the integrative therapy side of hospitals throughout the country. I mean, just about every single hospital before COVID was doing sound healing in the Bay Area and San Francisco area, and in every major hospital in the nation, right? Even throughout other countries too. But it's now about bringing it into the medical side, where we can find the frequency of that cancer cell,
Right.
turn the volume up and explode it. We can find the resonant frequency of that nerve that's in pain and resonate it into its actual natural resonant vibration, so it's no longer screaming, right? And we're talking about finding either the frequencies to blow up the disease, right? Or the frequency of what is right for every single part of the body. And so we put together the association to bring together doctors and sound therapists to really figure out the research protocols to figure out precisely how to proceed to heal every disease in the world, right? And it's working at not just the frequency level, but the combination of frequencies, the musical flow level. I mean, if you got a heart problem, maybe it's some frequencies in the heart. Maybe it's the flow through the circulatory system that's the problem. Maybe let's work at all levels, right? So we're going to be looking at all levels of vibration that I mentioned in the very beginning. And I'm really excited. At first I thought, I have to be careful, right? But with a large group, we already have 200 people in the association, right? And what's amazing is that the hospitals are now starting to lead it, right? Ever since the opioid crisis, doctors are looking for alternatives now, right? And also now there's two companies that actually have frequencies to get rid of the virus. And I think that's going to open up things even more. So hospitals are really coming around. It was funny. Someone sent out an email about a year and a half ago and said, Dave Gibson's working with cancer with sound. I'm like, oh my God, don't send that out. I'm going down, right? And then, like an hour later, the head of the integrated therapy department at Kaiser here in the Bay Area called me up and said, Dave, we're now starting to work with sound on cancer and we want to do research with you. And I'm like, oh my God, I don't have to worry. The hospitals are now leading it. So
Really,
that's really the goal.
I've seen more and more doctors, nurses,
Yeah.
functional medical doctors, all kinds of alternative health practitioners, but really the MDs. It's been amazing how many have shown up in my world as well and want to be trained or want somebody in their office that can work energetically. And, they're getting it. They realize that there's a certain limitation, a wall that they hit with traditional conventional
Right.
thinking. And they genuinely want to help people. I mean, doctors really want to help people. And
Right.
so they're opening up now. And
So, so check this out. This guy calls me up last year, right after I went to Mount Shasta, and says, "My guides told me to call Dave Gibson." I'm like, I love San Francisco, right? I said, "What do they want?" And he says, "They say that you're bringing sound into the medical side of the hospitals, and he said they're saying it will be completely embedded within 10 years in hospitals with the different technologies we actually already have, right? For pain, I mean, we're working directly with Kaiser for pain management, right? And and then I talked to my intuitive, and she goes, "Yeah, it will be embedded in 10 years, but it'll be 20 years before it's completely accepted." And I'm like, 20 years and we've completely are changing the hospital field and the field. Oh my God, this is incredible, right? Because you can, there are no side effects
yes, I
when
know.
you go in and resonate a part of the body into its healthy frequency. Lynn McTaggart there's a research project she talks about in the field where they take the frequency of a cell and they play it to a cell that's not healthy, and it actually makes that cell healthy and triggers its metabolism, right? And so that's the new medicine, and I'm really excited about it.
Lynn is just like one of my heroes, and she's really opened the door for a lot of us to be able to do our work because of her book and her research.
Right.
It's just so fabulous now to see people talking about the field. It's funny because 36 years ago, I became a Reiki practitioner. No one even knew what that was. They were like, oh, what's that? So weird. Well, now the first thing they say when I talk about my work or work like yours, they'll say, oh, is it like Reiki? The consciousness is changing. It's slow according to my pace, but it is changing and it's exciting. It's exciting to be part of that change.
Right, right. It's going to be a little longer before we can bring in spirit. We can sneak it into the hospitals, right? And then the next step, I mean, we're really just talking about physical,
Yeah.
vibration on the body. And really, when you go in the hospital, ultimately, they should say, okay, here's the physical ward, but over here, let's go into the emotional ward and see what was behind that to actually, and we'll work with with releasing stuck emotions with vibration, right? Oh, let's go into the mental ward and use binaural beats to get your focus more right on, so your brain's not jumping around more. And let's go into the spiritual realm. Oh, you're not spiritual? Okay, let's go out in the garden.
There we go. See, those are the three aspects. Everybody in my world knows this. Those are the three aspects of my pain-free living program.
Yeah,
You know, I tell people over and over, there's three places and only three to look. You look at the mind and the thinking habits, you know, the patterns of thought. You look at the emotions that
yeah,
have been suppressed, repressed, denied, that come out sideways as symptoms. And you don't even have to look at the body because the body's telling the story of both of those.
right,
And if you look at the spirit, oh my gosh, right? There's
right,
just that in that energy field. There's nowhere else to go. There's nowhere
yeah,
else to go.
yeah.
Wow.
It's interesting when you look at emotions, and really with any aspect, you can always look at whether you want activation
Yeah.
or calming. And different instruments are more activating or calming. Like gongs
Yeah.
are really activating, whereas like a harp is really calming. And there's a full spectrum between those, right? So it's really, when you look at depression,
Yeah.
we're talking about activation. You want to start slow, but you want to bring more and more activation. I've got a CD that's 15 minutes long and it starts like kind of blah, blah, blah. And by the end, it's like really activating with a lot of high frequencies and changes, and it's incredibly effective. Whereas with anxiety,
Right.
it's the opposite, right? We're not doing activation at all. It's all about calming down, right? Calm, calm, and more calm.
Are you familiar with the work of the late Dr. Valerie Hunt from UCLA?
Oh, I know of her. Yeah, she had the unit where you could actually measure chakras, right?
Exactly, and she measured the field and took photographs. But she said exactly this in her books, that you know everybody now talks about raising the vibration and high vibration, and she said absolutely not. A lot of people need a lower vibration for exactly the reason you're talking about. Some conditions you're overstimulated. In other conditions
Right,
you're under, and you need the
right.
frequencies that get you to the norm, not you know overactive or underactive.
Right. Well, okay, I've got a good perspective on that. It's really interesting. If you look at it physically, it's absolutely not a higher vibration. It's almost always more stable
Right.
as opposed to chaotic, right? So we're looking at the actual frequency of every part of the body that it naturally vibrates at, uh, no higher, no lower. Emotionally, it's also not about high frequency because anxiety is a very high frequency, right? Whereas when we make the sound of compassion, we often go low. Right? So it's all about stable frequencies of gratitude, compassion, love, and joy versus, fear, anger, anxiety, and such. Mentally, it's also about stable, consistent vibration. But it's interesting, when you're in the zone, your brain actually goes into gamma and subdelta, which is gamma's really fast and subdelta is really slow. So you actually go high and low at the same time when you're in the zone in the mental realm. Spiritually, it's also about consistency more so than high frequency. But I mean, if you've got a spiritual leader, it's all about stability.
Mm.
All right, we sit with them to get that stability. But there's people that talk about higher dimensions where different beings actually exist, and I've been told that those higher dimensions are actually just higher frequencies up above 20,000 hertz. So they're actual frequencies. So I started exploring those, and that's your consciousness. And a lot of people say if you go to these higher frequencies, you get a higher perspective. So there is an aspect of higher frequency in your consciousness, not physically, mentally, emotionally. But ultimately, it's interesting because, if there's 18 dimensions, the highest of all is all of them at the same time, right? Which is what we're talking about before of going into source of everything at once.
Very, very interesting. All right. So like, wow, the time's already flying. I want to If anyone has a question for David or myself, please type it in the chat now. I want to just open it up. If anybody, I know I can see that, people are saying they're vibrating and and I want to let everyone know David has been very gracious to give everyone a gift of one of his CDs, which I'm going to be putting in the replay recording, which we'll email out to you tomorrow. And it is his Unconditional Love. So, well, what do you call it? Why don't you explain?
Unconditional love. I can tell you, I used to have panic attacks years ago, and I would play this song on the guitar and I'd start crying and the panic attack would go away. And then I made the CD and we were doing research, clinical research with Parkinson's patients. And one patient came in, we were able to get rid of tremors almost every time on our sound table, right? And this one patient came in and her tremors were so bad she couldn't lay on the table. And and she said, Parkinson's is like having a panic attack all the time. I'm like, holy moly, right? So I gave her that song, and in 5 minutes, Unconditional Love completely got rid of her tremors altogether.
Wow.
And she was just bawling, right?
So amazing, isn't it? I've actually had a lot of clients with tremors and seizures as well, and they just respond so beautifully. And I've always found there's emotional component to it, so that makes complete sense what you're saying, that the panic, the fear, that vibration, if you're taking that to an extreme, of course you're going to be shaking and there'd be tremors. It makes
right, right.
Oh, beautiful. Tell us for a moment. Well, I'll tell you, everybody, in just a minute. I'm going to be emailing you his website and all the different. He's got a research institute, a sound therapy, a place where you can work with him, a store where you can get all the CDs. So I'm going to be giving you all of that in the email tomorrow. It's too many URLs to say out loud.
Yeah.
But we'll be sharing.
You can get to it all through soundhealingcenter.com.
There we go.
Right. Yeah.
Type that in the chat for everybody. Can you do that? Sound Healing Center, right?
Yeah, .com. Yeah.
And then David's got a big sale going on, don't you? It's, I think, would you tell me 10 to 15% off all his CDs right now?
Yeah. Actually, yeah, we've got over 100 CDs for different issues, and then the frequency CDs you play on the body, and we've got the sound lounges that will vibrate you into bliss that are really effective. We've got a guy that's working in Colorado with first responders, and he's got contracts with 75% of the police and fire stations there. And whenever they have a crisis, which means about to commit suicide, he takes out the sound lounge in his black op ambulance because they don't want any stigma, right? And puts him on the sound lounge. He saved 150 lives in the last year. Really effective for PTSD, right?
I was going to ask you about the sound lounge. Explain that, because the audience doesn't know what that is.
It's it's like a table. We also have massage tables with subwoofers inside it, and it just vibrates you really powerfully with my music, which is as someone said, there's something else going on in my music.
So go, if you like, go a little further into what is that special something, and how is it that you're able to do these technologies, or why are they effective?
Well, with the music, it's really kind of knowing the basis of how it all works, but then just tuning in. It's interesting, it's hard to explain, but it's really the smooth flow. Because when you do music, this slowly builds in a very smooth fashion without jumping around. The body goes with it really well. And when you calm down smoothly over a long period of time, the body really goes with it as well. There's another thing that I do is and you'll like it, for the Unconditional Love CD. All my CDs, actually, I meditated on unconditional love first, right? And got into that energy. I thought I got to get there first, right? And then I noticed the tempo of my breath.
Interesting.
And I set the recording to the tempo of my breath so I could stay in that energy the entire time in the CD.
Wow, very interesting.
Ah.
Um, Lori's asking which would be a good CD to pick now, because David's got CDs for you'll see all the titles for
Yeah.
fear, for sexual energy, for healing, for physical, for you've got like a wide range of topics that
Yeah, yeah, yeah. There's, some of the people's favorites. Unconditional love is really a favorite, but there's really four main ones. There's calm sleep is really good for any anxiety or any calming. Enlightenment, I know people that have said that it saved their life,
wow.
right? It's just a beautiful, and the Hathors and some other different beings show up in that one. There's also the water of life, which is really our favorite on the sound table, and that's really the essence of universal love, is what the focus was when I did that, and that.
There knows about it. We've got a comments that says, "Thank you. I love his music. Amazing water of life." So people already experienced that.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's really got some magic in it at the end. And all of the music has binaural beats embedded in it for brainwave entrainment. And there's a company called Nutrienergetics where you put your hand on a pad and it sends electronic signals through the body to ping different morphogenetic fields. And they give you a remedy, which is frequencies and geometries embedded in mineral water. They gave me all these remedies in quantum numbers, and every one of my CDs is actually a chord progression of the remedies.
Interesting.
So there's something else going on in the background in the CDs as well, besides just, inspiration and and
Love
so
it.
I,
Uh, Gil is asking, what is the sound table essential in combination with the music? And the answer is no, I'm sure, but go ahead and explain
well, I mean, the music is very cool, but when you, oh my God, when you get on the table and your whole body is vibrating to the bass of the song, it's really, there's no, I mean, if I've got anything emotional going on, I get on the sound table and within 10 minutes, not only has it gone out of my head, it's completely gone out of my body. It's really profound. It's really good for a stroke. It's really good for any neurological issue, really good for pain. Although I can tell you the thing for pain is our bass pod and our bass belt. We have these little subwoofers you can actually strap on with the frequencies for pain, and it's a bizarre how effective it is. I had a guy that had whiplash for 2 years. His pain was between 7 and 9, and within 10 minutes of strapping on this belt, his pain went down to 2 for the first time in 2 years. It's
that.
it's real. But what I'm really excited about is our research foundation to figure out
Yeah.
precisely what frequencies for what pain and everything. When I was in the hospital, I mean, there's no way I was going to put anything on that kidney stone, right? No way. I couldn't even lie down, much less put vibration on it,
Yeah.
right? But we should know. We should know the frequency. We should know the frequency for a burn versus a bruise. We should know the frequency for, and so this is one of our main research projects we're going to do in the Medical Sound Association. I'm so excited about it because the potential is huge, really huge. There's two ways that you can work with pain. One is distraction, right? You get in the bliss, you get in the zone, you don't feel the pain. Sometimes it goes away, but often it doesn't. The other way is to work directly on the part of the body and get it to vibrate at the frequency it was uh, uh, at before the pain happened, right? And so now you're restoring it to its natural healing state. And that's completely different than just blissing out.
Oh, absolutely. No. In fact, that's what I stress in our world here because it also, it has to bring up the emotional disturbance that's in the field that's actually causing a lot of that pain at the root. And
Right,
so it all works
right,
together like a beautiful symphony again. And I don't see any separation between the body, the mind, and the emotions. It's
right.
working all together. And so again, wouldn't the solution be to have all, like you said earlier, just have all frequencies at all time working on someone, and that would shift them into a coherent vibration all everywhere.
Yeah. We do a meditation in the classes where we actually walk people through every frequency, every rhythm, all the movement of the galaxies around each other, all the way up to the movement of the atoms. So you've got all of it in you, and you're feeling it all at the same time. And then it's just like, okay, now we're in the zone, right? Yeah, yeah. There's many ways, it's interesting. I've often thought, okay, you know and I've gone through it in detail. We can do sound, we can do any type of healing and meditation, and often get very still and calm. But there's a second level where the light opens up,
Yeah.
right? And that's the key. And there's the one way to access it is, it's basically simply ask. I mean, it's like Doreen Virtue. It's like there are angels up there just bored to death. They don't do anything until you say, "Can you help?" Okay, right, right. So it's just to ask. But also, the more times you go to a place of stillness
Yeah.
and get to where that is the natural state of your system,
Right.
then the higher beings are able to contact you because you're not all over the place. And that's really another major key, so that then light's everywhere.
David, wow. You're gonna have to come back because there's like a lot more to talk about. A lot of us go into our next group at 5 called the High Speed Healing Universe.
Uh-huh.
So we have to unfortunately say goodbye. How did this even happen in an hour's time?
Can we do one little meditation with love?
We can do it really quickly. Yeah.
1 minute. Yeah, we'll do 1 minute. Okay. So if anybody's ever in anxiety or fear, or connected to the whole thing going on the planet these days, Lord have mercy, right? Then here's a really cool thing. Bring love into your heart now, right? Feel it completely. And then we're going to make a sound. You can't do it wrong. We have a strict rule around here. You can never do a wrong sound. You can't do a bad, it can't be out of pitch, right? Do a sound of love, a sound that feels right for this feeling of love in your heart, and send it to everybody on the planet who's suffering, who's in fear, who's in anxiety, in anger, or suffering at all. Send it to them right now.
Wow. Mm. So beautiful. Everyone practice that and the intention to share that with the world every day. We need it. Wow. David Gibson, you are truly amazing. I'm so grateful you took time out to be with us. I will get this recording out to everybody here and lots more people who are on the mailing list that aren't here today live. You will all get Unconditional Love, David's CD. Please go to his website. Say it again,
Soundhealingcenter.com.
soundhealingcenter.com. He has something for everyone. Promise you, I have a lot of them on my laptop right here, and they're amazing. And the instructions are there. Whoever asked you wear headphones, he'll give you all the instructions with each CD.
Yeah.
And you have to come back. There's a lot more to talk about.
I can't wait.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Love you, everybody. Here today. Bye, everyone. Come back.
Bye.
See you later, everybody.